Hey, welcome everybody to Off the Record with Randall. First of all, I have to explain something. If you tuned in expecting the Coach Benefield interview, we rescheduled it, and frankly, Coach Benefield was going to do it in this time, but how he had a football commitment, and we never want to take away from a football commitment. So we were able to work with Coach Benefield and reschedule it for next week. That way we can get Coach when he's not trying to work between two different things. And we appreciate Coach being willing to do it, but you hate to ask him to do something when he's got something that involves the team. So reschedule it for next week. It's much more simpler and easier to get Coach a little more relaxed when he ain't worrying about the team.
Right. He actually texted me a few minutes ago and said, "Hey, we can actually do it tonight if you need to." And I told him not to worry about it because we'd already rescheduled, put the word out that it'd be next week, and I told him not to worry about it. Everything was good, and he kept on apologizing. I'm like, "Hey, man, don't worry about it. We just appreciate your time next week. Just be ready." And he said he would be. So seemed like we're going to be locked and loaded for next week, hopefully.
Oh yeah, and Coach, like I said, I want Coach to be able to be set back and relaxed a little bit when he goes to do this, and not worked trying to do two or three things at once. But Coach Benefield, and I'm sure I'll talk about this at next week when we get him on the air. But I talked to him after what I thought was one of the most heartbreaking high school games ever. The loss to Sylvania to Colbert County, and then I was working with Leroy Stansel and Phil Harris. And I think Leroy had already went on and left WFPA, but Phil and I done the game for FPA, and I remember. Hey, George Jackson, glad to have you above, buddy. Thank you for joining us. Um, I remember. After that heartbreaking loss, Sylvania lost. I went down, and I fully expected Coach not to give me an interview because last thing you want to do is talk to somebody putting a microphone in front of you after a heartbreaker like that. And the first thing Coach did was I saw him waving at me, and I thought he was waving me away. And I told Phil, I said, "Hey, Phil, look, we're just not going to have an interview tonight. Coach is saying and it was him waving me to come on over. He wanted to talk to me. So that
Right.
shows you what Coach Benefield's about. And I'm sure he would have got on here tonight and gave it his best effort. But maybe it's Aaron Rodgers. Maybe he don't want to come on because of Aaron Rodgers tonight.
And you never know with Coach Benefield. He apologized. He didn't realize that they had the football commitment going on tonight. And then when he texted me, he said, "Howie," he said, "I'm sorry." He said, "We could have done it tonight because they didn't really need me there." But being a head coach, he wants to be there. And he had already gave word to
Absolutely.
us, but he gave his word to us that he would do it. But hey, we understand. We'd rather him be with the team, taking care of what needs to be taken care of. I'd hate to get part of the way through this, and then all of a sudden they come back and say, "Oh yeah, we do need coach," and he'll have to, get out here and 15, 20 minutes into the interview or whatever. So
Right.
it seems like everything is ready to go next week. So
And the first thing I will tell you about Coach Benefield is I'm a fan of Paul Benefield more than anything. I'm a fan of Paul Benefield, the man, than the football coach. But I'm a fan of Fyffe football. Even though I'm in the Chattanooga area, I started many years ago on the Cab Count. Well, let's just take a minute. That's where I got to know you, matter of fact, for the folks that ever wondered how this came into existence. Howie was a senior basketball player. Phil and I started by calling his Phil Harris, who listens to us and still he's on WQSB now. He was part of the broadcast team, and Coach Benefield was at Sylvania, and Phil and I didn't know a thing about what we were doing. We just found a radio station that would put us on. Now Phil was a little more polished than I was, Howie. I'll admit it. If you needed somebody to talk to the cheerleaders or the band director, I was your guy back then. But
or
Coach
talking to
always
the lead
opened.
man at the concession stand.
Yeah, I did. I stole it from Rick and Bubba, but I did do the concession stand But I'm telling you, I think I stole that from Rick and Bubba. But I think Rick and Bubba stole the bathroom of the week from me because I would go in and rate the bathroom no matter where we're at. So, again, Coach Benefield will be here next week. Thank you all for understanding. But Howie and I are going to go along with this. And Howie, there's some breaking news right now in the college football world, and I don't even think I've prepared you for this, but let's talk about it just for a second. What do you make of it? I was watching the Feinbaum show right before I came on, and Feinbaum was running an article that said there had been some push towards a 12-team college football playoff. What do you think about a 12-team college football playoff?
Honestly, I don't like it. I mean, I love football. I love watching football. I played basketball in high school, like you said earlier. I don't like that 12-team format. The 4-team is okay. If they want to do an 8-team, it's okay. But if you're going to get on up to 12, let's have 3 regular season games and then have a tournament of 64. If we're going to do that, I say keep it at 4, no more than 8, and go from there. I'm a little bit old school. I'd rather have a ton of bowl games than a ton of playoff games because it don't matter who you try to put in the playoffs, somebody's going to be sore because they didn't get in there. So to me, I honestly I'd rather stay with the 4 than go up to any more.
Do you think? And let me add. I don't want people. We still got Coach Benefield's resume on our show going out tonight, and I'm gonna edit that out. So again, if you joined us thinking Coach Benefield will be here this week, he'll be next week, same time next Tuesday. But
you don't have to go nowhere. You can still stay with us and see what's going to be like.
Yeah, because we don't get no better than we're going to be tonight. So it's not going to be just throw Coach Benefield in with us, and you've got it next week. Same thing. I got to admit, Howie, I was shocked when today I started reading in the media that that this is kind of a thing, that 12 could happen. Let me just update this.
But while you're updating that, I don't understand or I don't see how they can actually do a 12-team. I'm not a mathematician by no means, but that would mean an extra 6 weeks of football, which fans like us would love it. But I mean, it would be difficult for the players, to be able to do that extra. I mean, that would put most of them doing 19 games a year.
No, so let me tell you how it's going to work. It's actually only adding 2 games to the schedule, 3 possibly. So seats 1 through 4 would get a bye. Seats 5 through 12 would play. And I got a comment here. The 4-team system is working. I agree 100%. And even if we went to 4, we would go to 8 first. That would be logical. But what Feinbaum was expressing was the possibility of going from 4 number 1 seeds or buys, 8 teams, 5 plays 12, 6 plays 11, etc. And then the winner of those teams would then play the first 4. I'm kind of with like our listener there that says, wouldn't it make more sense to go to 8 to start with than it would 12?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I said a while ago. If you're going to go, we're at 4 now. If you're going to do anything, go to 8. But going up to 12 is a huge jump. And like I said, regardless of how many teams you try to put in there in the playoffs, somebody's going to be upset because they got left out. Same thing with the NCAA tournament in basketball. They've got 64 in there, actually 66, 68 with the playoffs or play-in games and all that. And people still not happy because, they didn't get in. They were team number 69, number 70, and didn't make it in.
Right.
So regardless of how many you put in there, somebody's not going to be happy. So just, for me, just leave it the way it is.
All right, Howie. While we're on this subject about college football, real fast, and before we get off of this possible expansion of the playoffs, the point was made by a caller and someone on the phone. This is a direct effect of the Alabama Clemson effect that, they kind of dominated the playoffs, and this is an effort to get more people involved. You, as a fan, and you're an Alabama fan, and I'm a Tennessee fan, and there's no danger of us making the playoffs this year, but let's take a
That's why
school like
that's really why you're not really worried about the playoff system right now. So,
yeah, I don't get too upset about it. Uh, but if you were a fan of, let's say, LSU, and you lose to Alabama, and you have lost the game to, let's say, Texas A&M, you don't go to the SEC championship game. You're there 10-2. You're the 12th seed, and you get to go play at USC. And you get beat. Is that any better than a bowl game to you?
the only thing that would make it better for me, if I was a player, no, it wouldn't make it no better. I mean, I think I'd rather go to the bowl games because what I've heard and read over the years is if you go to a bowl game, they're going to give you something at the bowl game. You get TV or you get something like that. The school would love it being in the playoffs because that probably means a lot more money for them rather than being in a bowl game. But for me, I think I'd just rather be in a bowl game myself because you'll get to go somewhere that you probably have never been to be able to do
Right,
things, activities that they let the players do during the bowl week.
right.
So
So,
as for me, I think I'd rather go to a bowl game, knowing that I'm not going to win. If other than a playoff game, I think I'd rather go to a bowl game.
another good point. I think we're going to have to add George Jackson to the permanent cast. He's got better points than we do. Before you know it, cancel culture will have 24 teams. And there's some truth to that. And I guess that's what I was getting at, Howie, is how far do you devalue a playoff? Because the one thing about four teams being in it right now, if you get into playoffs, you've accomplished something. And you've accomplished something big. Even if you get in and you get beat by an Alabama or a Notre Dame or a Clemson, I guess I was thinking about Notre Dame. So let's use Notre
Right.
Dame. Been in twice, gotten beat bad twice, got to the finals once. If they got to the year they got to the finals and lost to Alabama, that was an amazing amazing year for them, in my opinion. That meant something to get there. If you're team 23 or team of 12 getting in, it don't mean a whole lot at this point.
Right. Like I said, regardless of how many teams they put in there, somebody's not going to be happy because they didn't get put in there. But the I still say players would love to have a chance to play in the playoff, but if they know in reality that they may not make it past that first round in the playoff, I really think that they'd probably rather go to a bowl game because if you're going to the playoff, going like you said, somebody going to USC playing there, playing in a playoff game, knowing that they could get beat, or having a chance to go to the Hawaii Bowl and sitting on the beach in Hawaii for a week, what would you rather do?
Hey, Philip Chaplin, thank you for sharing it. Coach had a football activity come up the last second. You being the son of a coach, you know what that's like. So thank you very much for sharing it. The interview's been rescheduled for next week, but for all those sites that's joining us, please be welcome. We're going to be talking about a little bit about college football, a little bit about the NFL. So, Howie, before we get too deep into this conversation now, let's change subjects real fast. I got a couple of things in the NFL I want to discuss with you. One of them be this weekend. We've made no secret that you're a Falcons season ticket holder. And the trade that went down, the Atlanta Falcons moved Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans for a second and a fourth. The Titans received Julio Jones and a sixth back in the deal. Where does Howie where does Howie the fan where does Howie the fan feel about this trade? First reaction.
First reaction, yeah, we wasn't winning with him, so let's see what we can do without him. Did he make the team better? He did make the team better, but when you're not sure if he's going to play week in or week out, I'd rather try it without him than with him.
So moving into the season, let's talk about last year what we got out of Julio. Julio was injured much of the season, and I did compare Julio often. His health had been spotty. Now, granted to Julio Jones, he had played. We had seen Julio play when we have been there, being Falcons fans, and at times thought watching him warm up was almost painful. But he still went. And a lot of those situations, I don't think most players would have went that Julio did go.
Right.
No one's ever said Julio's not a tough guy. But I guess as Phil Harris is saying on another comment, he's past his prime just a hair. What's your feelings on where Julio is in his career?
He has lost a step. He's still a beast. Even losing a step or two steps, he's still better than probably 90% of the league.
Right.
I've been down toward the locker room area where the players go to their cars afterwards. We've both been down there. I remember one night where Julio walked out on crutches with ice on his ankle, and them thinking that he wouldn't be playing next week, and then he came back and played the next week. He played, toughness is not a question. It's just a fact of, he's always had some bad hamstrings, and the older you get, I know that, and you know that. You more so than me because you're up there a little bit higher in age than I am. But and Phil Harris knows more than both of us.
I'm a speed limit at this point. I mean, So Sammy Hagar was thinking about you can't drive me now at this point. So.
Right. So, but anyway, back to the point. Getting up in age, the muscles, the joints, and all that are not as flexible as they used to be. They're not as able to move as they used to be. So, the hamstrings have been an issue for the last couple of years, and with him getting another year on them, that could be an issue, this coming season.
So, a second and a fourth. How did you feel about that? And then the part that no one really can realize, as Falcons fan, we do. A second and a fourth, but the $15 million in salary cap was just humongous to the Falcons' cause. It's going to allow us to sign
I wasn't real
picks.
enthused. Right. I wasn't real enthused with us giving up a sixth. I felt like a two picks for Julio should be sufficient enough, but whatever it took to get the deal done. I did read something yesterday with the freed up $15 million in cap would allow us, and I think I passed it on to you, will allow us to sign the draft picks and have an extra $8 million left over to possibly go out after another free agent or two if need be. So that's the big thing, was freeing up some cap space, because we're okay right now, but I saw an article earlier today where next year we're going to be kind of in the same shape again. And if we'd kept Julio around, it would have been even worse. So you got to start chiseling away at the salary cap somehow. So might as well start with him this year, and then next year there's some other big names that'll have to be let go.
So I've said this is Thomas Dimitriev's last gift to the Falcons, and I believe so. And he restructured this deal once before, moved more money into 21. We have dead money on the book from, you told me yesterday, the cornerback.
Desmond Trufant was over $5 million dead money this year. I think Jamon Brown, the lineman, I think that was his name, he was nearly $2 million. And there's another one that's another $2 million. And then Adding Julio to that will be a 7 million. So you're looking at, well, math is not my favorite subject or not the best subject, but that's close to 15 million
It's
in dead cap.
actually very good, Howie. But the actual number is between 15 and 16 million in dead cap space, and your cap is right at 150 million. That's about 10% of your cap that's in dead. But what it does do is free the Falcons up to sign this draft class. Are you buying into the scenario that Julio was unhappy with the Kyle Pitts pick?
No, not with the Pitts pick. No. From what I've heard and read, he started being unhappy last year when they let Dan Quinn go. Him and Dan Quinn were what people were saying were best friends. They were real tight. Apparently, Julio was kind of campaigning for him to stick around till the end of the season, but the brain trust, Arthur Blank, decided to let him go. And from everything I've heard and read, that is where the turmoil really started in, was when they let Dan Quinn go. And, you would always thought, and everybody was led to believe that Julio and Arthur Blank were like real tight as well. And then in his farewell statement today, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Arthur Blank's name was never mentioned. The organization's name was never mentioned, but the city and the fans' name was. So, something went wrong sometime, and everybody's pointing back to when Dan Quinn was let go earlier last season.
Well, and today was a last minute deal, but we've talked about putting this show together. Let's talk about the direction of the Falcons. Of course, 2017 coming off the Super Bowl, the team instantly was still competitive. Is that a fair way to put it? After the Super Bowl year, you thought the team was still there, but immediately the production out of who I remember most was Devontae Freeman and Desmond Trufant was not to the level it was previously, and the cracks started early, and also the outflux of cash started early. Signing of Trufant, signing of Matt Ryan, the signing of Freeman, the signing of Julio. It really backloaded that team to where we're at now, and it is serious salary cap. And we're probably looking at 23 before we get some relief to this cap. Did Atlanta overpay to the Super Bowl team? Was these contracts hey, you got us there? We're rewarding past efforts, or do you think the Dimitrioff and Quinn regime really thought they had something that was a 5 to 6 year run?
I think they had something, or they felt like they had something that was going to be a 5 or 6 year run, maybe 7 years or whatever. But as we spoke in the past, I feel like we didn't lose players after that Super Bowl that that made us go downhill. We lost certain coaches that made us go downhill. We lost Shanahan, the offense coordinator. The offense has still put out pretty good numbers, so don't get me wrong, offense still been pretty good. But you have emphasized this several times, and I agree with you. When they let Brian Cox go after that Super Bowl run, the defensive line hasn't been the same since.
And let's go there. Kyle Shanahan was an elite offensive coordinator, but we were in the tunnel the night the Falcons clinched the Super Bowl, and we spent some time down there where Julio came out. We got some pictures, and I talked I made best friends with backup tight end, but I was just happy to be part of it. But that night, Brian Cox walked through there, and there's Dan Quinn, there's Matt Ryan, there's Julio Jones, there's everybody and Brian Cox was the alpha in the room. And you could tell it, Howie. He was where the mojo to that team came from.
He brought the swag to the players to
Absolutely.
make them feel like they could go out and do what they needed to do or wanted to do. I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it, since he left, Vic Beasley did absolutely nothing. The defensive line has probably done nothing since then either, except for Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett, he's a man among child when it comes to
Yeah.
stopping up that middle, But other than that,
But
defensive
he
line has done
developed,
nothing.
to the point, Grady Jarrett kind of developed early in his career under the old regime. And then, I mean, Grady Jarrett's Grady Jarrett at this point. So let's talk about where the Falcons are today.
Well, let me
First
go back to
off,
Grady Jarrett for a
go
second,
ahead.
if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
He was a fifth round pick that everybody told him he would never make the team, and he had something to prove. And he's one of those players that came in and worked his tail off to prove that he was made to be there. And unless something major happens, I feel like he'll be a Falcon for life. But a lot of people felt like that with Julio, but still, Grady Jarrett came in. He had something to prove, and he feel like he got something to prove day in and day out. And they say he's one of the hardest workers that the Falcons
Constantly,
have on the
yes.
team. So he's wanting to prove people wrong.
So they go 10-6 in the next year in 2017. You still felt like it was headed in the right direction, but once Shanahan was a year removed, once Brian Cox was a year removed, you just didn't feel like the direction was the same. Was Dan Quinn a good head coach, or was Dan Quinn blessed with great assistants?
I feel like he was blessed with great assistance. Um, I think he's going to be one of these people that he might get another chance to be a head coach one day, but I think he could be one of those lifer assistant coaches because I think if he's a defensive coordinator, I think he does a good job. But being able to run the whole team like a coach should, or yeah, like a coach should be able to, I don't think he can do it.
So even last year, that was a 7-9 team that played above that level. So let's
But
just
they
finish
were
up with
1-6 under Dan Quinn though.
yeah, true. Let's finish up. Last question about this, and then we're going to move on to the Green Bay Packers. We were going to get Coach Benefield in the Green Bay Packer conversation with us, but again, if you're joining us for the interview with Coach Paul Benefield, we moved the interview because Coach had some football activities that was going on, and we did not want to interfere with that. Coach was happy to still come on and do the interview, but again, we would rather Coach take care of the football activities. Next week at 7 o'clock, next Tuesday, we'll have the interview with Coach Benefield in its entirety. And in that interview, Howie, I have a feeling he's going to talk about your directions in Atlanta, but not that I was going to lead him on that path. But let's get back to the Falcons. One last
As far as I
question.
know, both of you's made it over there and made it back after my directions. I don't know why y'all
I
are
just
complaining
ride.
about it.
I just ride with you. Uh, One last question about the Falcons. Who has the better receivers now? The Tennessee Titans with Brown, Jones, Fisker, or the Atlanta Falcons with Ridley, Gage, and Kyle Pitts?
That's a good
Phil,
question. I mean,
Phil,
the
Coach,
big,
Phil, this is Phil Harris at his finest. Y'all quit lying. Be honest. Coach Benefield blew y'all off.
yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah, he did. Uh, as far as the biggest receivers, the Titans, they would be, they're the biggest receivers as far as the best. Russell Gage, I think, and Ridley probably is probably a lot more sure-handed than Brown and Jones. As good as Julio was, he dropped some easy passes in the past as well. And I'm sorry, I'm a homer, I'm a Falcons fan, so I got to go with Ridley and Gage and hopefully Pitts. And
Got to get
so,
Pitts signed first.
right, well, that should be that should be easy to do. I think after tomorrow because I think that's when the trade will become official through the league. So hopefully get him signed. And it's a lot easier these days. That's something we were talking about at a different time. But the draft picks don't hold out no more because everything is priced. If you're picked at this position here, you're gonna get this money. It's not like it used to be in the day when a quarterback got drafted number one. He held out until he got a $500 million and 3 planets given to them, so they're
Yeah.
actually in there on time now. So, but a quick
And
story though, I've owned 2 jerseys in my whole life. Now I'll let you guess which two they are, and I won't have either one of them probably by the end, by the time football season rolls around. The first one was Michael Vick, and then that next season he got in a little bit of trouble. And then, of course, I bought a Julio Jones at the beginning of this past season. Now he's not there no more. So that's part of the reason I don't buy jerseys, because you just don't know how long those players are going to stick with that team.
and I'll still be wearing my Matt Ryan circa 2007 Reebok. It's so old now, Howie. I call it a throwback. People don't realize I bought it when it was new.
Right.
But I
I've
will
I've
say,
actually got on the right shirt tonight. I don't know if I can show it to you or not, but it says straight out of Atlanta, and it's got a picture of Julio on it. So that's
yeah,
kind of fitting for
that's nice.
tonight. He is straight out of Atlanta tonight. So made the trip to Nashville yesterday and was welcomed by everybody. So I wish the best for Julio. I hope he can get with the team and win a Super Bowl before it's over with. But I'd really loved it. I really would have loved if it would have been with Atlanta though.
So while we're on it, RiverCity-Media shirts available for $25. We'll have a new supply coming in the next week or so. So River City hats coming in. They'll look very similar to this, except the RiverCity-Media logo. Howie, I feel like the Titans have the better receivers for the year, but I really think Russell Gage at 25 years old kind of learned how to play receiver last year. I don't think the Falcons have to ask Russell Gage to replace Julio. Kyle Pitts is a bigger, faster version of Julio at tight end. I think the Falcons are there. I said this on draft night. On draft night, the Falcons chose Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts over Justin Fields and Julio Jones. And I think that's still fair because I don't think both of them could stay. And I think, you've got 4 or 5 more years with Matt Ryan. Today, Tom Brady showed up 44 years old, and not everybody's going to play to 44. But Matt Ryan could literally play to 40 and have 5 more NFL seasons. Matt Ryan's also playing for history. And when I say that, people get a little, I guess, sarcastic about it. But Matt Ryan is on a pace to break 70,000 yards, to be in the top 5 into Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Brett Favre. That does mean something to your franchise to have that guy up there. I don't think it was a personal thing between Matt Ryan and Julio. They chose Matt Ryan. I just think they thought Matt Ryan had more football left on the tread than Julio did. What would have happened if the Falcons did take Justin Fields and this was Matt Ryan on his way out of town? Do you think it would be as big a story as Julio?
That's a really good question. It's hard to tell because, ton of Julio Jones fans in Atlanta. We both know that. But when it comes to Matt Ryan, you got people it's 50-50.
Hot and cold. I mean,
Yes.
no
And
quarterback, no quarterback's ever been more divisive in his home stadium than Matt Ryan can be at times.
if Matt Ryan had been playing anywhere else, he would be, not saying that he's not a superstar now, but he would be more so of one, especially in his home stadium. Does he have bad games? Yes. Does Tom Brady have bad games? Yes. Does Aaron Rodgers have bad games? Russell Wilson? Yes. But he also has a lot of good games. The good games overshadow the bad games.
And Michael
Well,
Vick was the most loved football player in Atlanta Falcons history.
he
And
was
unless you're a,
so exciting to watch. It was like watching, a real life PlayStation game in person because the things that he would do on the field. Our friend Phil Harris, I carried him over to watch it's strange that it goes like this, but me and him went over and watched the Green Bay Packers play Atlanta. And I don't know if that's Phil's first game to go watch or not, but pro game. But he's like, man, they're so much faster in person than seeing them on TV. He said, here's Brett Favre going around, doing a bootleg. He's a lot faster in person than you see on TV. And then when Michael Vick gets out there and starts scrambling around, it's trying to catch a gnat with your hand. It's so fast and move around so quick, you just couldn't catch them.
And I don't guess unless you're in Atlanta, you realize how popular Michael Vick was. I was at the Falcons-Eagles game when Michael Vick returned as a starting quarterback, and it was almost a surreal environment. I am not the biggest Michael Vick fan. I've always said it out front. I thought Michael Vick, I still think he's an athlete more than a quarterback, similar to Lamar Jackson. I do think Michael Vick was a little better quarterback in some ways than Lamar Jackson, but when he was in the open field with the football, there was nothing like it. Nothing. But I don't want to get too far down this. We spent about 30 minutes on the Falcons. Let's get to the Packers real fast. So today, Aaron Rodgers doesn't show up for the Packers. And Devontae Adams and several Packer teammates just basically come out in Aaron Rodgers' favor. And it appears now that the Green Bay Packers have a little bit of a revolt on their hands. Could you see Aaron Rodgers in another uniform come September, or do you think the Packers will get this solved?
I'm just curious why we're getting to the Green Bay Packers so fast when Aaron Rodgers won't even show up and they're trying to pay him to be there.
Well, that's a good point and probably the funniest thing you've ever said on there.
I think they could, because it's kind of coming down to a storybook thing to where same thing with Brett Favre back when when Green Bay drafted Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre wasn't happy about it. And then, how long did Aaron sit behind Brett? 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And then he got traded away.
I think let me pull it up for sure. I'm wanting to say it was 3 or 4 years. I want to say it was 4 years, but that seems too long.
But it seems like it's the same controversy that's going on now that happened back then, and we saw how that played out. And so I feel like we could actually see Aaron Rodgers in a different uniform this coming season.
Aaron Rodgers set basically 3 years behind Brett Favre, 2005, 6, and 7. Okay, let's play this out. We just talked about how much tread Matt Ryan has and how much tread Julio has. How much tread does Aaron Rodgers have on him? Can Aaron Rodgers play till he's a young 38, and that's what I said today. I don't even think of Aaron Rodgers being 38 when I watch him play. He seems younger than Matt Ryan. Let's just say it out loud.
Yeah. I didn't realize he was 38.
Yeah, he was 37. He was in the 2005 draft class. So he will be 38 in December. I have a heart. When you watch him play, he doesn't play like a 37-year-old quarterback. But by contrast, Ben Roethlisberger is 39, and I would thought that he is 5 years or 7 years older than Aaron Rodgers just watching them both play. So
it seems like when Aaron Rodgers plays, he's kind of like Brett Favre. They're out there having fun while they're playing. They're smiling, they're laughing, they're talking to everybody. But when the lights comes on, it's time for them to do something. They will make the play when they have to. But yeah, it's just hard to believe that Aaron Rodgers is 38. He's, I remember, watching some of the playoff games and watching games earlier or this past season, and he's mobile, still real mobile for that age. And it don't look like his arm has lost a beat or, when you're running, you lose a step. I don't know what, it don't seem like his arm's lost any velocity at all because he's still slinging that thing all over the field.
Well, can it be that he started 3 years later and that he has 3 years less football on his body? He actually has less football on his physical body than Matt Ryan does. To me, that would maybe he's took 3 years less hits. He's took 3 years less pounding on his arms. So maybe actually the side effect of setting 3 years is that he's in a little better shape than most 37 years old. Now I was trying to get to a point, so let me just skip over all that and go to this. Does Aaron Rodgers make a team? I'm going to give you a couple of teams. You tell me if you think Aaron Rodgers makes them a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, let's break it down that way because there's probably this year more than ever, there's fewer NFL teams that are really looking for quarterbacks because they're pretty much set with young players that's going to be there for a while.
Would Aaron Rodgers on the Washington football team make them a Super Bowl team?
Yes, because Washington has had a great defense over the years. They've had zero offense.
They've got a couple of nice pieces in McLaren and Antonio Gibson, the running back from last year. How about does he make the Chicago Bears a Super Bowl team?
Same thing. Yes, because they've got a great defense. They've actually got some skill players, more than Washington does. The key to Chicago is the quarterback situation. Everybody thought Trubisky was going to be it. He didn't pan out. I think it was Nick Foles that came in halfway through the season. He did okay, but he's not the quarterback. If you put an Aaron Rodgers on the Chicago Bears, yes, I think they could actually, dethrone the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I mean, I don't expect that one since they drafted Justin Fields, but
Well, I don't expect it because they're in the same division as Green Bay as well.
Right. But I'm just coming up with teams off the top of my head.
Right. But let's look at it like this. If Chicago could get Aaron Rodgers to come in, who better for Justin Fields to learn from than Aaron Rodgers?
Absolutely. The place he's most talked about going to, and it's almost a replay of the Peyton Manning situation. If you take Aaron Rodgers and put him on the Denver Broncos, are the Denver Broncos a Super Bowl contender?
Their playoff team, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. They do have a good defense, like the other two that you said, but
and they have Jerry Jeudy and
their skill position, that's where I'm getting at, are extremely young. They're
yes.
extremely young at all the skill positions. So that's one thing. They can make the playoffs, I feel like, but be a Super Bowl contender, no, not at all.
Is it possible after a year that see what I said was they can be a Super Bowl team? It wouldn't be this year, but when the Cortland Suttons and the Jerry Jeudy's and the Javonte Williams they drafted this year grew up a little bit, that they might win a Super Bowl 2 years or 3 years down the road. You had to invest a little more time with the Broncos than you did. To me, the one that is the most instant turnaround, and I hope Ryan Fitzpatrick is the guy, but the Washington football team just seems like if you could get quarterback play, they are a Super Bowl team with Chase Young and that freakish young defense and a great running back and a great wide receiver and a great tight end. So this leads to my next question. What is the value of winning a Super Bowl? Is it worth two firsts and 2 seconds?
Yes, of course. That's the holy grail that everybody's trying for in the NFL, to win that Super Bowl. You get on a winning spree there. We both saw it back in 2017.
It was kind of
went
strange.
on a winning spree, and you went from half full stadium to 3/4 full stadium to the place was rocking when we beat. Sorry, Coach Benefield, but we beat your Green Bay Packers to go to the Super Bowl. We was both there. I mean, you were singing and dancing and two claps and a Ric Flair, and
I
it
believe that. It
was,
might have been the night two claps and a Ric Flair got invented.
of course, that's what you want. You want to win the Super Bowl. And like you said, Aaron Rodgers shows up in Washington. If they can make that happen, I really feel like, especially look at the division they're in. They're in the East. The Cowboys, the Cowboys drafted their defense basically this year. They're going to be majority mainly rookies, and I kind of hope they get hammered all year since Dan Quinn's the defense coordinator there. No offense, but you got Philly coming in that Jalen Hurts did a great job at quarterback when he came in and played last year, but now the coach is saying, I don't know who my quarterback's going to be. It's open competition. And then you got the New York Giants that's kind of on the borderline where they could actually be pretty decent, but they're one injury away from being back to where they was at last year. So, Washington could have if they just get a quarterback in there, they could make some noise in the playoffs.
Do you does it is it the same level of story if Brett Favre or if Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay that was when Brett Favre did?
I don't think
Because
so. I really don't think so because Brett Favre was Green Bay through and through. It's kind of hard to explain, but he was a Packer through and through. And Rodgers has kind of got a little bit of, I hate to say it, but he's got a little bit of Hollywood in him.
he's very
He's
much.
not, he's not the common. Let's say it like this: he's not the common man. He's not the blue collar person. Aaron Rodgers is more of the Hollywood style when Brett Favre was the common man. And that's what people in Green Bay love is the common man, the blue collar person. And I think it would would it make noise, yeah, but nowhere near like it was when Favre left.
All right, look, one more subject before we could close out tonight. And again, if you joined us for the Coach Paul Benefield interview, that'll be next Tuesday on Off the Record with Randall. Everything slides back 1 week. Coach had some football activities, and we're more than happy to
Or
move out.
or according to Phil Harris, he blew us off, so he may blow us off again next week. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you
We'll
know
find out
what?
then.
Phil Harris was supposed to be here too, and I'm pretty sure he blew us off. So, um,
Well, he sent me a text, but I couldn't check it because it's on my phone right now. But anyway, we'll see what he see. I'll see what he has to say here in a minute. So
we love Phil, and someday we're going to get him off here. You're watching Off the Record with Randall at 9 o'clock tonight. 3 R's Sports, and one thing we're going to break down on 3 R's tonight, Howie, about the Julio trade is the fantasy impact to the trade. So we'll delve into that a little bit. But the last subject we'll cover tonight, and I want to get to this, and again, I'm a Tennessee grad. Behind me there, you see a bunch of Tennessee stuff. But I have great respect for the last three quarterbacks that come from the University of Alabama. You've had Tua, Hurts, and Mac Jones. And you said something just a minute ago about Hurts. If you were going to handicap those three quarterbacks now, who do you give the best chance to be an NFL star to, and why?
Mac Jones, just because to it a little bit injury prone, he likes to get out of the pocket. Uh, Jalen Hurts, he likes to get out of the pocket. You don't want to get out of the pockets unless you've got an elite speed. But I think Mac Jones could be a superstar in the NFL because he is. I'm not comparing him to him, but he's kind of Tom Brady-esque as
Landing
far
in a
as
good spot.
good decision making, good arm strength, and knows when to get rid of the ball, knows where he needs to throw the ball before the ball needs to be thrown.
Right.
Nothing nothing against Hurts. I loved Hurts. I wish him the best, except for one game this year. Same with Tua. We go down to Miami sometime this year. I wish Tua the best. I hope he goes 16-1. Maybe Hurts will go 16-1. And Mac Jones, 16-1 as well, because they have the Patriots coming in on Thursday night game.
We're going to see all three of them, and that was going to be the next question. The Falcons are going to see all three of those quarterbacks. Well, you assume that Hurts is the starter, and you assume Tua is the starter. Mac Jones, you probably got a ways to go to get that starting position.
Come on, let's be realistic. I mean, he's behind Cam Newton and Jared Stidham, so he ain't got long to wait. I don't feel like. I feel like Mac Jones will be a starter by, I think it's toward the end of October when Patriots come in. So I feel like Mac Jones will be the starter when they come into town.
And did you think about that? In New England's quarterback room is Auburn, Alabama.
Hadn't thought about it till you just now said that, but yeah,
It's unusual. I don't know if that's ever existed in the NFL.
That's a good thing that that's something that people just don't realize it, and they do get ribbed. And, I've heard too many stories about professional players giving other professional players a hard time, especially on Saturdays when they're at team meetings and their collegiate teams are playing against each other.
Right. And I believe Steno did play against Alabama when Mac Jones was there. I don't know if Mac Jones played in the game. It would have probably been Tua and Ertz, but still yet.
I think so.
Do you think that, and for a fantasy reason, I'm really high, and this is strictly from a fantasy perspective, Jalen Hurts is able to do things with his legs in Philly that are not Lamar Jackson in that the fact he's going to rush for 1,100 yards. But Jalen Hurts can put up 500 yards, 600 yards, and that adds a lot to a quarterback's value in the fantasy system. I find Jalen Hurts more fun to watch than Tua. I guess I'm rooting for Jalen Hurts because basically he lost his starting position, left, went to work on his game, went to Oklahoma, and kind of remade himself. Do you see differences in his game now with the Eagles than when he was at Alabama?
Yeah, it seems like his passing, his accuracy is a little bit better. But, you got to think about it. Back then when he was at Alabama was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, basically. He didn't have to throw the ball as much, The air tide didn't come in until Tua took over and started chunking the ball all over the place with Waddle and Jerry Jeudy and Ridley and who else they have, Ruggs and all that, But I think Hurts has developed more into a quarterback, and I think the best thing he could have done, he did by going to Oklahoma and learning how to be more of a pocket presence passer than just kind of read the first route and then take off running. That's one of his Achilles heels there in Alabama was he'd come off his first receiver, instead of looking for his second read or third read, he'd take off running. But at Oklahoma, he progressed, went to the first read, second read, third read, and that helped him tremendously.
So I pulled it up, and I wasn't going to talk about this because we kind of put it in the last, but we've got 5 minutes. I want to run some things down for you real fast. These, I won't say the name of the website, but it's the website I've subscribed to for my fantasy football draft. And I want to run through some numbers at receiver and quarterback for you to start with. Let's do quarterback first, and then that'll apply to this, and then we'll get into receiver.
I think I know where you're going with this because I think I saw the same thing earlier this afternoon when it comes to two certain quarterbacks.
Jalen Hurts is rated the 10th quarterback in this year's draft. Let me give you the list. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. Well, does that sound a little weird hearing that together? And then Tua. Let me find Tua on here.
While you're finding Tua, the website that I saw, what I thought you was going to go at, the website that I saw had Matt Ryan and Tannehill's numbers side by side, and they're predicting Matt Ryan to have better numbers than Tannehill
That
all
one's
season
coming.
long.
Since you brought it up,
Oh, my fault. I didn't know he was going to bring that part up.
Tua is number 19, by the way. Mac Jones, I guess they still don't have listed as the starter, so he's not on the top 25 or so. Matt Ryan, 14, Ryan Tannehill, 15.
Right.
So that goes to what you were saying. Now, wide receiver wise.
Now let's go back to that quarterback situation real quick.
Okay.
Part of that with Tannehill could be because he's got a Coke machine with a head on it standing behind him wearing the number 22 that's going to get the ball 35 times a game, if not more.
Absolutely.
So that's why Tannehill's numbers won't be as good probably as they could be.
For fantasy, but I see Matt Ryan and Ryan Tannehill. I've said it all week. They're a lot the same.
Yeah.
Tannehill's a younger version of Ryan, and maybe a bit more athletic, and I hold Matt Ryan in high esteem. So I've always told the Titans people, don't be insulted to that. I think Matt Ryan's better than most everybody else in the NFL. I have Matt Ryan rated higher. I don't think Matt Ryan's elite, but he's a very good quarterback. Number 6, Calvin Ridley. Number 7, A.J. Brown. Number 13, Julio Jones. Can you kind of agree with all that?
Yeah, I don't see nothing wrong with that, and not because of what happened on Sunday or anything. Julio could be a little bit higher than he really needs to be, because you think about it, Julio's never been a great fantasy player to have while he was in Atlanta, because he didn't average but about 4 or 5 touchdowns a season.
He'd have 150 catches, but
he'd have a ton of catches, a ton of yards, but touchdown-wise, he didn't do you no good.
Russell Gage, number 64. Does that seem like the greatest value ever?
Yeah. Atlanta's got some decent receivers that have came out of nowhere, basically. And if they improve as much from 2 years ago as they did to last year, and from last year improve as much as they did coming into this season, we could be saying at the end of the season, Julio who? Because Gage and Zacchaeus and I can't think of the other guy's name, but there's another guy that's there.
Cameron Blake.
Christian Blake. I don't know why I didn't think about it, because they posted today. I think today was his birthday. Anyway, but could be a great receiving crew, all because we have a player wearing the number 8 running the middle, taking away a safety to where you can't double team.
And he's currently ranked as the 8th tight end, and I do think that's fair. He is a rookie. He may have some rookie struggles. Howie, it's been this hour goes by fast. First,
it does. It really does.
Hey, we'll Coach Benefield will be here next week at 8:00. We enjoyed putting us. I can't say this is
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock now. I'm sorry. Phil Harris has already texted me, blowing me up. 7 o'clock.
Same here, man.
7 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Central Time. Coach Benefield will be here. We'll talk about his career. We'll talk about where he's going next year. Howie, last word. Did the Falcons do the right thing by moving on from Julio Jones?
My heart says no, but my mind says yes, because we had to make cap space to get players signed. I'd love to have seen what Julio could have done with this offense, with Arthur Smith, seeing what he done in Tennessee last year. I'd love to see what he could have done with this type of offense in Atlanta with Julio, Ridley, Pitts, Mike Davis at running back, just to see what he could have done. But I knew deep down that Julio wasn't going to be here because of the fact of they had to free up some money. And to win now, it's easier to let a wide receiver go. It's easier to replace a wide receiver than it is to replace QB1. And QB1 had to be here.
Does having an extra second rounder make it a little easier for the Falcons to move in the 22 draft if they decide, Phil, we'd love to have you, buddy. Absolutely love to have you next week. Does an extra second make it easier for the Falcons to move up if they decide that's the way they're going to go next year?
Well, it'll really depends on where Tennessee finishes at. You know, that pick will depend on where Tennessee finishes. If Tennessee wins the Super Bowl, then it's basically a third round pick.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know, the best thing for us Falcons people to do is wish and hope that Tennessee tanks this year to where we get a high second round draft pick instead of basically a third round pick.
Well, I'm going to let you know it's going to be hard for me to do since I live in the middle of Titans territory. And I absolutely love Julio Jones. So
it's same here. My mom was a huge Tennessee Titans fan, and I can't root against them, you know. But that shouldn't stop the other Falcons fans from not rooting against them. So maybe me and you can root for the Titans, and all the other Falcons fans can root against them.
So the $1 million question I haven't asked yet, and I still haven't asked her, is Annalie going to make me go buy a Titans Julio Jones jersey? Because my 11-year-old daughter loves Julio Jones more than any athlete ever. So
Well, I had that conversation with my 12-year-old this afternoon on the way to the dentist. I said, with Julio gone, what are we going to do with that jersey? She said, we're going to change it for something else. I said, well, you just need to decide on who you want to get besides Zacchaeus, because I don't think they make a Zacchaeus jersey. But if you decide on who you want, we'll get you another one besides Julio. So
and
you just gotta bite the bullet and go ahead and have that talk with her.
I know, and I think she'll probably want to wear a Julio jersey. Not to the games, but she loves wearing that jersey like to school.
I'll wear my 11 jersey, Jones. You know, I saw on Twitter today a lot of people took their 11 Falcons jersey and put Young on the back of it for Trey Young, in support of the Hawks, you know, playoff run right now. But you know, there'll be a ton of Jones jerseys there next year, regardless.
There's still Michael Vick jerseys there.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Does Julio deserve to be retired in the Ring of Honor?
Oh yes, definitely. He will be. It could be one of those things where they bring him back for what is it, a 1-day contract where he retires as a Falcon. I think he deserves that. Him and Matt Ryan deserve to retire as Falcons. So I think it will happen. It should happen, and I really feel like it will happen.
All right. Well, this will wrap up Off the Record with Randall. 7 to 8 each Tuesday, 9 to 10:30, 3R Sports tonight. Robbie, Raj, and we're going to break down this trade a little more too, and we're going to also talk a little bit about the big Dodgers and Braves series. We're going to talk about the 12-game playoff series that we've talked about. We're also going to talk a little bit about the NBA and how the Hawks appear to be for real. And also in the Bet Your Nuts segment, Randall is now 9-1. So we'll have a lot here in about an hour. Next week, Paul Benefield, Howie Chaney, Phil Harris from WQSB has committed. So we should have a house full, and it'll be a good time.
Has he committed to be on the show, or has he been committed to insane asylum?
Well, it could be both. You know, he kind of he'd probably be eating chips and sitting there in front of his TV, but we'd love to have Phil. And you don't know, Phil is the voice of the WQSB scoreboard show, heard all over the state of Alabama. So for Randall and Howie, you got any last words?
None at all. Well, maybe 2 words. Go Hawks.
Had 2 good shows AEW show, and tonight was. You're just becoming my You're going to be my Egg McMahon before it's over with. You're going to have to say, "Here's Randall." Folks, I'll see you back in an hour, and next week we'll see you with Coach Benefield, Phil Harris, Howie, and for Off the Record with Randall. We'll see you next week. See you, Howie.
See you guys.